Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is my December wrap-up. This is also the first video of 2021, even though I'm filming this on the 31st. But this is my December wrap-up and stats and all of that. I still can't believe it's the end of the year. Like, that is insane. But let's just, I guess, get started with this, and we'll start off like always with the stats. There'll be the little like board thing that I might need to change for the new year to add more things, but I haven't decided yet. But let's just get started. If I look over here, it's because I have like the stats on my like computer screen, so I can read them off and make sure that they're like accurate and not just my brain trying to memorize them. So I read 20 books in December, which is my second highest reading like amount besides July. I read 8,204 pages. That's the most pages I have read, and that beats July, which was my like biggest book of like number of books, by like 602 pages. But that's because I read like 1,200 pages in like 2 days, and then you'll see some books that were big books that I read in one day that probably contributed to that. The average star rating was a 4.05. For the like audience, I read 2 adults, 1 middle grade. When did I read a middle grade? Oh, I was like, when did I read a middle grade? Oh yeah, I read that this month. 6 new adult and 11 YA. So that's the most, like, this month has been the most like what's the word, like the audience has been the most dispersed because it goes across 4 different like reading audiences, versus typically it's like 2, maybe 3 at the most. There's never been 4. Now into the genres, I read 1 classic, 1 contemporary, 15 fantasy, 2 horror, and 1 sci-fi. So now we'll get on to these books. These are the books that I read the last half of the month, so I will leave in the iCard up here, I think, and in the description my mid-month wrap-up, so you can see what I read at the beginning of the month, because there are some pretty good books, I would say, that I read at the beginning of the month. First, we're going to start with A Curse of Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. I never know how to pronounce her last name. And this is, this I gave a 4-star. This we follow Harper, who is a like girl in DC who gets kidnapped and taken to the magical like land of Emberfall to break this curse that is placed upon the Prince of Emberfall named Ren. And then we also follow Ren, who is cursed, and he has to try to he has a curse placed upon him where he has to try to fall in love in a like season's time before a monster takes over. And if the monster takes over, the season restarts, and this is the final season. And if you didn't tell by that description, this is a like Beauty and the Beast retelling, and this might be my favorite retelling that I've read. I read this back in January, and I'm doing a reread of the series because A Vow So Bold and Deadly, which is the 3rd and final book in this trilogy, comes out in January. So yeah, I love this book. It's not like, it's a 4-star, but it's like, it's just because there's a few things that I'm just like, okay, like, really, does that character have to be such an asshole? Did this really have to happen? Yada yada yada, but like, I love it. Next we have A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab, and this is the 3rd and final book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. The first one being A Darker Shade of Magic, where we follow and Antari named Kel, and Antari is basically somebody with all the magical abilities that are in this world, and they can use their magic to travel in between these like worlds that we have. There are 4 worlds. There is Red London, where Kel is from. There is White London, Grey London, and Black London, and Kel ends up bringing something back to Red London from, I can't remember, I think it's from Grey London, and that sets off the chain of events. This third book is, I don't know if the third book, A Conjuring of Light, is my favorite, or if the second book, A Gathering of Shadows, is my favorite. I did give A Conjuring of Light a 4.5 stars. I do love this series. This is a series that in probably like maybe like in like 2022 maybe I might give it a reread. It is a really good series. Next we have Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury, and this is a like classic sci-fi where we follow Guy Montag, who is a firefighter, and the firefighters in this world don't put out fires, they burn books because books are illegal, and all of that. And once Guy Montag's wife tries to commit suicide, and he makes friends with the neighbor, his kind of view on society starts to change. And this I gave a 2-star. I had to read this for school. I had to do like a, what's it called, like a novel study, and it was like you had to pick one of these books, and like it had to be a book you haven't read. The book I wanted to read I've already read, so like couldn't read it, I had to read this. I didn't enjoy it really. Like I enjoyed the appeal, but the execution was like, I just didn't like it. But that's okay. I don't think classics are for me. I might try some more classics in 2021, but the 2 that I've read I just haven't liked. Next we have Warcross by Marie Lu, and this I gave a 4-star. In this we follow Amika Chen, who is a bounty hunter for the game Warcross, which is a virtual reality game, and during the like Warcross World Champions like opening like ceremony, Amika hacks into the ceremony, which then ends up getting her name well known. She's contacted by the creator of Warcross to say, hey, come to Japan, I have an offer, and that offer is to work for his company as a like kind of as a bounty hunter, but in the tournament to find a person that is hacking in much more severely than she is, and all of that. And I love this book. This is the one, like, I don't read sci-fis, and this is like a sci-fi, but it's like a sci-fi set in like set on Earth. I have never read a book that takes place in Japan, and so that was kind of interesting. I love the atmosphere of this book, and I love the game Warcross itself. It seems so cool. I love Amika as a character. She's like a badass without being badass. Like, she's a hacker. She's pretty like sly in her actions, like and all of that. Plus she has colored hair and tattoos. That right there spells amazing to me. I loved I loved all of the side characters pretty much. I loved the little romance that was in this book, but the ending is what just kind of like blew my mind. How what happens, how like the hacker, who the hacker is revealed to be, is kind of like, oh, I didn't expect that. What the villain, I guess, of the second book maybe is revealed, and I'm like, oh, I never would have thought that in a million years. I'm excited to pick up Wildcard, which is the finale of this duology. I probably will pick up Wildcard in February or March maybe. Like, I'm not like I need to read it, but like it will be something that I will try to prioritize beginning of 2021. Next we have Ash Princess by Sebastian, and this I gave a 4-star. This we follow Princess Theodosia, I think that is how you pronounce her name, and she, 10 years ago, her mother was murdered right in front of her, and ever since then, Theo, that's her nickname, that she goes by, is under the control of the Kaiser, who has taken over her kingdom and is now ruling it, and she now has the title of Ash Princess, which is kind of like a degrading title in her society. But when she ends up, a person from her childhood ends up approaching her with an offer to get her out of the palace, and so that she can maybe reclaim her title. She does this, but part of this plan is to execute the prince. And that's kind of all I'm going to say. I probably did a little bit of spoiler, but whatever. But I really enjoyed this book. This is the classic, oh, we have a princess trying to reclaim her land, but it was executed in a pretty strong way. And I genuinely love most of these characters, and I love the big reveal at the end. I can't say what it is, obviously, but I love the reveal at the end, how it's like, oh crap. I'm pretty sure I said oh crap like multiple times through this book to be like, oh, I love the kind of love triangle that is forming. Like, this is shockingly a love triangle that I kind of enjoy it. I usually like love triangles, but there's some that I'm like, oh my gosh, can we just get this done with? Like, pick one. But this one I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't care who she ends up with as of now. I am going to be trying to get my hands on a copy of the second book, Lady Smoke. I'm thinking of maybe trying to buy it for a birthday present to myself if I can acquire enough money, because my work is really slow. I'm not working that much, so I'm not making much money, so I'm praying that I will be able to buy, I'll probably just buy the next 2 books in the series, well, the only two other books in the series, which are Lady Smoke and Ember Queen, because I am invested in this series. I need to continue it as soon as possible, but I want to get physical copies because I know I'm going to read them, love them, and want physical copies, so might as well just buy them physical copies versus buying an ebook and then being like, oh, I want a physical copy. Save me money. Ooh, next we have 2 books that I'm gonna be all over the place with these 2. Next we have Shattered Kingdom by Angelina J. Steffort, which I gave 5 stars, and then we have Wicked Crown by Angelina J. Steffort, which I also gave 5 stars. So, a little backstory with this before I go into it. I received a copy of Shattered Kingdom from the author back in October, and I was like, I'm gonna read it in November, review it, and all of that. And then she was going to then send me book 2, and then eventually put me on our art team for book 3 that comes out in February. Well, I didn't read it then. I read it Christmas Eve. I was like, let's start Shattered Kingdom. I read it in 4.5 hours. It's 472 pages, all in one sitting on Christmas Eve. But let's actually go to what this is about. We follow 17-year-old Gandret, who was taken from her home 10 years ago and is at this I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's basically in this desert, and it's basically a training place for people to be either kind of part of almost part of a military type thing, or to be a priestess or something. They worship this goddess named Vala and all of that. But then when somebody comes to take Gandret from there on a request of a lord that is one of the lords is the lord that put her there. She obviously has to accept because, like, the leader of that facility makes her, but she ends up going on this kind of adventure that she never thought, and that's a really bad description. I do not know how to describe this. My brain is still all over the place about this, but I read the first one, Shadow Kingdom, in one night. Then I read Wicked Crown in one night. It's 505 pages in one night. I don't know how. This series is addictive. It's just like, I love all of the characters. I love every single bit of the plot. I obviously can't say the parts that I want to talk about because spoilers, but like, oh my gosh, like, I need the third book right now. There's so much to unpack in this series. It's such a rich world with such great history, great characters, and I might do an entire review of this because I love it so much. I read Wicked Crown on Kindle Unlimited. It was the first book that I read on Kindle Unlimited because I got Kindle Unlimited for like 3 months. My parents are paying for it, so I saw it was on Kindle Unlimited and I was like, okay, like, no, we're not going to message the author and bother her to see if I can get a copy, but I will probably message the author back and be like, hey, I read these two. Remember when you said that you maybe would add me to the ARC team? I'll see. Obviously, if not, I'm sold for this series anyways. I'm pretty sure the third book will also be on Kindle Unlimited, which it comes out February. I don't know the date. I know it's February 2021. So I'm excited for that. Next, we have Blood and Honor by Miranda Lynn, and this doesn't come out until January 4th. So I got it. This is a book I got an ARC of, and it's the, I can say I read a 2020 road release in 2020, which I find so cool. But this we follow two characters. We follow Aura, who is a high fae who, after something happens at the palace involving the sea fae queen, I think, then that's what she's called. She ends up having to run back to her family's home to find her parents murdered, and that sends her on a quest to kind of figure out why it was done, to solve these problems that her parents gave to her on their deathbed and all of that. And then we follow a lesser fae named Tamir, who lesser faes are treated as crap basically, but Tamir ends up going to live in the palace of the king of the wind. I don't remember exactly if that's true. The king, because he has these abilities to heal, and the king finds that as a plus, and Tamir, with the help of his mentor, had found a way to make a truth serum for, I think it's specifically the sea fae, and that sends Tamir on a wanting to leave so that he doesn't get murdered, because he would get murdered if that happens, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. I definitely loved Tamir's point of view more than Aura's, just because Aura's was much more like all over the place, whereas Tamir's was much more like a linear thing of like, oh yeah, you can tell exactly what's happening, plus there was a little bit of romance on Tamir's point of view versus Aura's there wasn't. But I'm excited to see where the next book goes. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it comes out in March or April, I think, and I'm really excited for it because of where we ended off and all of that. And I gave this a 4-star. I'm horrible at mentioning what I give books, like, oh my gosh. Next we have Damned by Lynda O'Rourke, and this is the 4th book in the Cassidy Bell series. The first book in the Cassidy Bell series is being Demon, where I've described this so many times over the last few months, but where we follow Cassidy Bell, who needs a little bit of extra money. She finds out there's this drug trial at this like hospital, and she does it, but this drug trial tends to be much more sinister than it seemed, and so Drug is her at this hospital trying to escape, and then we go from there. the books in the series are Drug, Dwell, Demon, Damned, and Deceived. And I'm hoping to be able to read Deceived in January to finish the reread of this series. I gave this a 4-star. It's a good horror. It's one of the first horrors that I've ever read. It's actually one of the 2 horror series that I've read, because I've only ever read 2 horror series. Next we have A Poison, Dark, and Drowning by Jessica Cluas, and this is the second book in the Kingdom on Fire series. The first being A Shadow Bright and Burning. A Shadow Bright and Burning follows Henrietta Howell, who finds out that she's a sorcerer, which there aren't any female sorcerers, so she has to travel to London? It takes place in London. Or where the hell does it take place? Yeah, London. I knew it was the UK. I couldn't remember what city it was. But to travel to London to kind of learn under a sorcerer. But minor spoiler for the first book. It is revealed that she's not a sorcerer, but she's a magician. Because there are witches, sorcerers, and magicians, and we go from there. The second book, I didn't like as much. I gave it a 3.5. It is okay. There are multiple reveals that are just like, I'm sorry. What? There was a thing that I, jokingly in one chapter, I was like, okay, if blank happens, I will eat my shoe. Because I was like, there's no way that would happen. Not even 5 pages later, it was revealed. So I'm like, I have to eat a shoe. Like, and then I said something not even 50 pages later. I was like, oh, what if that happens? And then it happened. I'm like, so it's predictable, but like in a, I would have never thought that to happen predictable. Like, oh, I'm making a joke. Like, oh, what if that happens, thinking it's not going to happen? And I kind of love it when series do that, when I can guess, but I'm like, that's not where it's going, and then it's where it goes, and I'm like, yes, I got it right without meaning to. Or is that just me? That might just be me and my weird self. But I am excited to read the final book, which is Sorrow, Fierce, and Falling. I'm going to be reading that in January. So I'm excited to finally like finish this series because I've had it for so long, and it is a good series. It has a really good like the magic is really cool and it's cool yet simple, and all of that. But like some of the characters, I'm like, okay, like I don't love you. Like Henrietta as a main character, I'm like, I don't love her. I like her. So this book is just a 3.5. But I really hope that the third book will be a 4-star at least. The first book was a 4-star. So, yeah. And then the final book that I read this year, I'm technically not finished with this, but it's a reread, and I will finish it tonight because I have like 120 pages left, so that's more than doable for tonight, and that is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Brigid Kemmerer, and this is the second book in the Cursebreaker series that I mentioned before. I should have mentioned this before, but I didn't. But this is a sequel to a Curse So Dark and Lonely, but this we follow a character named Gray, who is now on the run from like Prince Ren for reasons and all of that. And then we also follow the princess of the, like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but from the, like, another country in this world that has a queen that is trying to, like, take over Emberfall. And it is really good. I gave this a 4. I'm going to give this a 4.5 because that's what I gave it the first time I read this, when I read this in April. But I'm going to be giving it a 4.5. I know it's that. If anything, the rating might go up to a 5, but I know it's at least a 4.5. And again, I'm so excited for a Valsable and Deadly to come out in January. But those were the books that I read in the last half of the month. This video is so long, and I know that. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll stick around for 2021 to see all the crazy stuff that I'm posting. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!